did it again, and then they actually, I think in the second movie, they say they did it like 5 or 6 times. I can't remember exactly.
It's certainly been several iterations, and
Exactly, several
Neo
iterations because
is
there's always a Neo that comes and
there's
Yeah,
always a chosen, right?
I
Yeah.
think what it
yeah,
was is he was the third Neo, but what the architect said, and it was the third movie, was that they had done it way like a lot of times.
Right.
yeah, exactly. So by that time, this is how many times they go through the trouble of keeping these things, and he actually says there are levels of survival we're willing to accept. Even if they wanted to wipe out the human race, they totally could. They entirely could, and they still do not. So in this scenario, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to say it was the machines who are doing the human race the favor. And the point that I take from it is that the good guys, Neo and the rest of them running around in their latex and kung fu, they're the ones who are typical mindless idealists that don't understand the end result of their actions, have not prepared, and will make this a disaster. And it's the machines that, again, we hate them because obviously they're going to be structuralists, obviously they're going to be pragmatists, obviously they're going to tell us what to do. And so, oh, God forbid they actually do the things that we know to do now. Forget 500 years in the future. We know the right thing to do now, and we're still not doing it. So I will absolutely give machines that credit. The world that I wouldn't want to live in is the world that this, pack of rave radicals has planned for me.
I mean, it's a lot of good points and a lot of good grist for that mill. I guess my question is, who brings the fucking Molly to the center of the Earth rave?
Right?
Like,
You guys are having
where
fucking raves right now.
where are you getting your Molly? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Because you seem to be enjoying yourselves, and maybe it's just joy of life. But come on, man.
Guys, oh wait, hold on. Just break it down. They figured out how to make metropolises underneath the ground. You don't think they figured out how to make fucking MDMA?
All right. I mean, I guess
It's
somebody
I
did.
wouldn't call it a metropolis.
Uh,
I mean, it's
Oh, all right. I mean, I'm with you on every single point because I've always, the more I think about Matrix, the more I'm like, as I was saying earlier in text message conversation that we were having, that I hope it comes down to the fact that the machines were really just aggressively babysitting the entire species. Because if not, their entire idea is so fucking idiotic that it's so embarrassing that we lost to that. Like, guys, hold on. We couldn't beat the goddamn machines who decided that the best energy source were humans. They couldn't come up with anything else. We got beat by those guys. What the fuck? So yeah, I'm with you. I always felt that way. But at the same time, let's not completely denigrate the humans who made it out, because fine, you don't have to call it Metropolis. It is 100-level subterranean living space that housed about hundreds of thousands of people and had munition points, had like launch bays, they had vehicles, they had high-level weaponry to take on an actual machine Armageddon. I mean,
that's great,
look,
but
they
you're
weren't
about
exactly living high on the hog, I get it, or the Jetsons, but let's also not forget what they were already working with in reduced areas. So my point is, I'm willing to bet they probably figure out how to make drugs.
all right.
okay. I mean, the real problem is they got to make crops because they've got a whole other bunch of people that they're going to have to feed underground.
Well, they got.
Wouldn't it be awesome if like the real secret story of Matrix was that they were actually cannibals and really all they were doing is just getting their own
Soylent Green.
yeah.
Soylent Green is people.
Neo, thank you so much for all the help and all that, but it is time for you to be part of the feast.
Right.
We really appreciate everything you did for us, but now the machines are vanquished. Yeah, you're looking like you're not too well marbled, looking pretty lean, good, nice grass fed.
Okay.
the machines have taught us a lot about locally sourcing things. So
Yeah.
talk about farm to table. All right, that would be a hell of a twist. I like it though, and it is consistent with what even the machines tell people, right? Mr. Smith is, human beings are the disease, right? There's only one other. We are the cure.
Because because a lot of things, you might remember in, I can't remember it, Kevin Smith's first movie. Oh my God, I can't remember.
Oh, Clerks.
Clerks, thank you.
Yes.
Clerks, they were talking about how, it was actually the rebels that are the left-wing radicals, and, they're coming to fuck everything. No, not the same thing. Because in the case of that, the Empire was taking something away.
Right.
And they had to live under that tyranny. In the case of the Matrix, and, at the end, you get the universe, which is pretty sweet. You get your world back, you get your freedoms back. In this, the humans crossed the line and were willing to destroy everything.
Right.
At that point, where you're talking about annihilating yourselves just so you can annihilate your enemy, no more toys for you. No, you don't get to play in freedom anymore. Nope, you're done.
It's a strong argument for taking the keys.
No, you're living in goo now. You're going to live in goo, and we're going to take care of the rest of your destiny, because you have without question proven that you can't live up to the task of freedom. So,
regardless of whose fault it would be, one thing that would suck about that computer simulation that the Matrix puts you in is your life could actually end just by an agent just hopping bodies. Just want to point that out. That's a shitty way to go.
Yeah, I mean, heart disease, car accidents, whatever. Agents. Put it on the list. Mass shootings, natural disasters. Yeah, just put it on the list.
All that stuff. I'll leave it on the one last just little detail I always love, because you mentioned how, even though it's sort of farcically inefficient, how of course the machines use humans as an energy source, which is the central piece to the first movie. Like, that's the whole big reveal. But before the reveal, earlier on when they pick up Neo, I'm forgetting who the character is. She's one of the smaller characters, and it's not Carrie Ann Moss, but she refers to him as Copper Top, like as in a Duracell battery. And I just always love that detail, because one of the things that flush out universes
Copper Top,
is the slang.
Yeah.
Right? If you're gonna have a universe, humans make we make slang for things, right? If you're hip to it and you understand it. So calling him Copper Top, it's only said once, but I just loved it. It was just a little piece of something in there.
That's why I wish they just stopped with just the Matrix.
Oh yes,
so well done. Because at that point, they knew enough to not keep going.
Right.
Like, that's a mistake, because I 100% agree with you with, like, you gotta introduce slang, but it can't be for everything. It can't be to the point where you gotta feel like you gotta walk around with the movie's thesaurus to keep up with just general conversation. That's idiotic on so many different levels. So one other thing that movie just knocked out of the park. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, it was just it gave it that layered feel to it, and definitely gave it that universe feel you could live in. So. All right, I'm going to take over the talking stick here for my little time here. Thank you for that, Greg. And I'm going into kind of a funny area that I love. I've loved comic book movies since pretty much their inception. I can still remember the television. First, I can remember the Incredible Hulk series on television with the sad music at the end every week.
Oh my God, yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. They even renamed him to David Banner. It was David Bruce Banner. It wasn't even Bruce Banner. I guess they just didn't like the BB sound on CBS. I don't know what it was. I can remember the Captain America movies where he had the plastic shield and the really cheesy motorcycle and the giant motorcycle helmet. I can remember the best being the Spider-Man movies that they used to show also on CBS, like at the prime time, like the 8 o'clock hours, and it had that bass line. It was awesome. It was great. It was so cheesy, and the way they had his little arms going. So life has just gotten, needless to say, life has just gotten better and better for me. I even appreciated, I know it's not always the best, but I appreciated the first Bryan Singer X-Men movie, because at the time it certainly was cutting edge. as we've gone on, we look back on it, there's some flaws in it. Fair enough. But, you know, it was the beginning of trying to take these movies seriously and put them out as some kind of serious point and putting them in. And then, you know, then we go on to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which really just weaves everything together in this. You know, we talk about universe building. There's just all these little references. And if you watch them and if you go back and you watch them again and again, you can catch all these little references and references, you know, to each other and even little cameos and just this continuity. That's great. Even in the DC universe, they've had some trouble there. It's not quite as much to get. But as a kid, God, I loved the John Williams Superman theme. Like, what a great, what a great piece of music that just summed up, like, you saw that and you see Christopher Reeve flying right through the air with the cutting edge of blue screen technology at the time, right? And he was always proud of himself because he got jacked enough that he didn't have to wear a padded suit like George Reeves did before. And then, you know, we'll have to see what this Henry Cavill seems to have avoided the Superman curse so far. Let's keep our fingers crossed because I like The Witcher. But, you know, even going through there and even to the modern iterations with Henry Cavill, I thought he did a good job as Superman. The movies he was been given have been so, but, you know, there's just something there and there's something worth watching. But it's actually within the DC movies, and one of the considered worst ones, of course, for some pretty obvious reasons. It brings me to my point. When watching Batman versus Superman, it really brought home a very true point. I am very happy to watch superhero movies, but good God, I do not want to live in a world with actual superpowered human beings, right? It shows it very clearly in Batman versus Superman. Just imagine walking down the street and having 9/11 style events on any given day just because two people decided they had beef with each other. Some dude wants to take his shirt off and says, "Do you want to go, bro? Do you want to go?" And the next thing you know, fucking buildings are falling on you, right? The first Avengers movie, great watch, fantastic, fucking aliens are coming out of an interdimensional dimension and destroying New York. In the meantime, one of the good guys is in fact the Hulk, who needs anger management. He eventually gets it later on through the films, but he's, you know, at one point he punches his best friend in Thor just because he's so worked up. He just slams him with his fist. It's a great scene. My kids love it. They laugh their asses off. But in the meanwhile, the best way they could do that was to try and keep the carnage around Grand Central Station. That's their sort of plan. And they are actually being cognizant of trying to minimize civilian casualties. Later on, when they're, I don't know, I can't recall if I guess they're in Wakanda or some kind of outer made up African nation, but that's what brings about the later called Sokovia Accords. First you have Sokovia and a whole city being destroyed there. And then there's another incident with the character played by the Olsen sister there, who's now officially being dubbed the Scarlet Witch. Yeah, it's she hasn't been called that at this point in the cinematic universe, but now later on, now they've had the show where they've officially established her in that. But there's a massive, like, they're trying to hunt down Hydra members, and there's a massive civilian body count, or a big enough one that it causes the UN of the time and then the governments to start to be like, hey, what do we do with these things, right? And I think what really ties it and brings it home about why you just would never want this goes to the series that, in my opinion, brings it to the most realistic level, which is The Boys, right? The Boys is so perfectly on point for what superheroes would actually look like in 2021, right? These narcissistic Instagram influencers who can rip you in half if they so choose, right? You know, the only reason they don't want to is because there's a problem with ratings, right? And there's that fine line that they need to keep your adoration and your love there to feed their own worst narcissistic impulses. Governments are trying to control them. Corporations are trying to control them. You know, who's controlling who comes into it. and it's still a question, right? About and who's controlling